What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Restoration Rundown Podcast, the podcast that's dedicated to you, the restoration business owner. My name is Ben Riccardi from Ironclad Restoration Marketing, and I'm the author of the No BS Guide to Internet Marketing for Restoration Contractors. Now, the Restoration Rundown is your source for everything related to managing and owning your restoration business, from bringing on special guests and sharing success stories to taking deep dives with our team here at Ironclad Restoration Marketing into all of the online channels that you need to be tapping into to get visibility for your restoration business and get more leads from the internet. We've got you covered. So buckle up and get ready for the rundown.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Restoration Rundown, the podcast that you know is built specifically for the restoration business owner who wants to run a stronger company, lead better teams, and make smarter decisions without all the fluff you're probably used to seeing. Today, I'm joined by an old friend, Mr. Rod Cruce. He's from Trifecta Growth Institute, and he's here today to talk about something that impacts every single part of your business, your leadership identity. So if your business feels like it's outgrowing you, or you feel reactive, you're stretched out, you're burned out, this episode will give you practical steps to lead your business with more clarity and probably more consistency. So whether you're driving to a job site, you're in the office, or you're just taking a minute to think about where your business is headed next, let's dig into the work a little bit that helps you become the kind of leader your company needs. Let's jump in and welcome Mr. Rod Cruce to the show. Rod, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Doing well, man. Thank you for the kind introduction there. Doing well. And yourself?
Doing well. It's been in the weeds after the holidays. You know how it is. I was telling you pre-show, I've been rolling around in the dirt for about 6 hours this morning chasing water main leaks, but it's nice to get out in the field every once in a while and you get buried in the office. I'm sure you can appreciate that. How about yourself? How did your holidays go?
It was good. We took some time off and actually coming back to the new year, felt a little bit refreshed, which is always good to get some recovery in there. And then, there's a lot waiting for you when you come back. So trying to catch up.
That's the thing. You think you're taking a break and what you're doing is just stockpiling more stuff to do when you get back into the office.
Very much so.
All right, Rod, for anybody that hasn't crossed paths with you, listen, I go to most of the industry events and I kind of see you and your team pretty regularly for the last few years. But for those out there that have never run across you, don't know anything about Trifecta, why don't you give us the quick version, who you are, what you do, and how you ended up working so close with restoration business owners and leaders?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, believe it or not, I actually owned a restoration company. So I've been in the industry as well. Been in construction going on 30 years. Was in the restoration business for about a decade, and then sold my company. And then when I was getting to figure out what I was going to do next, ended up starting Trifecta Growth Institute to be able to help out contractors. And that's through, leadership development, training. We call it training, leadership, development, and coaching. So we've developed some, restoration certifications for the project manager, project coordinator. And then we also have a leadership track that is used to help develop up and coming leaders, or if you've never had any leadership development yourself, to help kind of fine tune that so that you are communicating well with your team.
Well, I appreciate that. And I want to dive in right away here and talk a little bit about, just the overall 30,000 square view. Was there a moment when you realized that leadership struggles weren't just about systems or strategy, but something maybe a little bit deeper?
Yeah. My previous experience was, Ranger and Green Beret in the Army. And we it's everything we do is about leadership. It's one of the first things that, I brought to my team whenever I bought a failing restoration company, was brought in the leadership and the structure, which allowed us to recover very quickly. Since selling that business and getting a lot more involved with contractors, it's just like there's no real good path that we see in the industry that people are developing leaders. They kind of cut their teeth, they get promoted or somebody quit. And then all of a sudden they're like, here you go, you're in charge now. Or there's no real good method to get them in there. And then also we see a lot of people that have been homegrown that, have doubts about themselves sometimes. And then of course, this industry is big about, do what I say, not what I do.
Yeah.
Some aspects of it. So
Yeah, no, and I get that. I guess from my experience too, I was just think you either had it or you don't have it. So I guess that's not always the case. In my construction company, it's like you can kind of quickly identify who's going to step up, but it's kind of cool to see what you were doing with the leadership training and trying to maybe apply that to some of our people that we want to promote from within and get them on a growth track, because at the end of the day, I'm sure there's certain qualities and traits somebody's going to have to be in a management position or whatever that case may be, to move from the shovel to the truck and then to the office. But you have a new track coming up. You have a ton of courses on your website. I've got your website scrolling on the bottom here, trifectagrowthinstitute.com. So I implore you guys, if you're listening to this, check his website out. There's a ton of information on there. He's got videos galore. And again, he's very present in the industry. But I want to talk about your new thing you got coming up on February 4th. It's a leadership identity. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's called Shaping Your Leadership Identity.
Okay.
And we see a lot of raw leadership. Now, don't get me wrong. There is leadership in this industry.
Yeah.
100% of it. A lot of it is raw. A lot of it is, emulate other things they've seen in the past. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. The thing about leadership is every situation is different, and you have to have number one, you've got to have the opportunity a lot of times to show your leadership. And you can be an informal leader, which takes all the responsibility and accountability off of you. And it's always great to be that, it's that, backseat driver or however money more quarterback at that point. But when you tag with that responsibility and accountability on that aspect of it, how you show up, how you demonstrate yourself, how you lead is viewed on every day, and by different people. And a lot of times that can be the difference between people staying in your company or looking for a different company, to go work for.
Yeah.
So Shaping Your Leadership Identity, we've created this course, and it's based off years of being a Green Beret, also taking those attributes into the business world and looking about what does it mean to know who you are, what you stand for, and how do you set expectations. And I say that because there's a lot of people out there say, what do you mean, who am I? I do know who I am, or what I stand for. I know what I stand for, but do you? And a lot of times we see that, people say that, but then if that was true, they wouldn't be a chameleon between this situation and the next situation and the next situation a week later.
Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is you confuse your team.
Mm-hmm.
And they're trying to figure out who you are and figure out how to best support you, hopefully, and also how to follow you. So this course here goes into that aspect of, we do a deep dive into you and what all this means to you. What is your self-awareness? We also do a few assessments on this that allows you to tap into the three parts of your brain of the cognitive, the affective, and the conative. And the conative being the most important on how you work. How do you solve problems? How do you make decisions? And then we follow that up is, what is leadership to you? And then how do you discover and how do you set those expectations of the leader you want to be for yourself? And then how do you create this? What we walk away with is a leadership profile. And that leadership profile allows you to always go back and become rooted and found it, and in good foundation, that you don't have to be this way one day and this way another day. And then you can use that to set expectations for your team. And if you're not, you can also take it to your boss and say, this is who I am and this is what I'm looking for, which allows them to set expectations for you.
I appreciate that. And it, kind of helps shape what this is going to be all about. And I kind of come up with a couple things while I'm listening to you, and I kind of know what your deal is with Trifecta. But I kind of keep coming back to the focus of why do you think so many people are focusing on tactics and kind of avoiding this leadership work? And do you see any things that stand out to you that people are going to just avoid this? Because it sounds pretty, it sounds like something foundational you should be doing as an entrepreneur. And I know a lot of us guys that are kind of building the plane as we fly. So, we're talking in retrospect a little bit, but why do you think so many owners are focusing on tactics and avoiding this type of leadership work?
A lot of people teach leadership and they base it on theory. We take theory and put it to application.
Yeah.
In every one of our tracks that you go into, there is what we call a capstone event at the end of it. So all the work you're putting in to get to that capstone event is something you're going to walk away with, which is a leadership tool that you will implement in your business. I think a lot of people, there's some people out there just, students of the game, and they'll do whatever it is to help themselves better that.
Yeah.
Other people is like, I don't need a leadership course. I got my leadership from Hard Knocks. You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
And that is a component of it. Don't get me wrong. Having an application and learning and getting smacked around a little bit and making some mistakes is part of the growing process.
Yeah, sure.
But if you're getting hard knocks all the time, then you may want to take a different approach and maybe learn a little bit ahead of time, so that we won't get in the concussion protocol and be out of the game for next week or the week after. So, I think a lot of it is people just feel like it's theory. But our industry has a big problem. Our industry has a big problem with retention and recruiting.
Yeah.
And I correlate that to a couple things. I correlate that to leadership, number one. And number two, how are you setting what expectations people have? And when you don't set expectations and you try to let them figure it out, if they don't have a place where they're going and what success looks like, they're going to find somewhere else that allows them to do that. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in the last couple of months that have reached out to us about, hey, we want to take your course. We're going to go get a new job. We want to make ourselves more presentable to the, we haven't received any training since I've been here the last 3 years, last 4 years. All we hear is that we're not performing, we're not doing well.
Wow.
So, when you hear that, that's not leadership. It's more about, that's the school of hard knocks sometimes that gets you, right?
Yeah.
And now some people that may work. That's called a motivation. And we have a piece of that too about, how do you motivate different people? And some people get motivated intrinsically, and that's who you want working for you. And some people get motivated extrinsically through, rewards, bonuses, and stuff like that. And you can't just have one or the other. And there's different things to that. But if you don't understand as a leader, how do you motivate somebody or how do you communicate with that person, you're probably going to lose them. And you don't want to lose a really good performer.
No, it kind of reminds me a little bit when you're talking about the guys that grew up in the hard knocks. That's like the guys that are getting older and not training. I train jujitsu and MMA, and you get the gentleman you talk to, and like, I just see red. I've been in enough street fights, and then they come and visit the gym for an open mat real quick and have a 125-pound guy holding down on the ground. And, the light comes on at that point. So speaking of which, when you're first initiating contact with guys out there, if there's restoration business owners out there that we'll put it in the proverbial seeing red, they got the school of hard knocks, they don't need this. What are some of those warning signs you see when you're first initiating contact with some of these businesses that just show you that they're having a leadership identity crisis?
Yeah. One of the first questions, kind of like I said when we first started, is, what do you stand for?
Yeah.
And a lot of people that's it's not stump the chump, but a lot of people don't know how to answer that. And, and so if you don't know what you stand for, how's everybody else supposed to figure it out?
Right.
And, automatically when somebody says that, or they say, no, we got our own leadership development, the next one I say, okay, what's that like? What does that look like? And, it's all internal, we do right seat rides. So, and I'm like,
okay. Polls, hand out some sandwiches.
Yep, exactly. And then, the next one is, when I ask them, when we start asking what their biggest weakness is, that's a very silent moment because they don't want to address a weakness, even though we all have them. And, if you don't know your weakness, that's a big issue. That's how you get blindsides. That's how you start to lose people.
Yeah.
If you're losing people in your company because they keep coming in and coming out, you probably need to go look in that mirror and look at your leadership team or yourself. If you are the leader in that aspect of it, figure out what your blind side is, because losing people really costs you a lot of money.
Oh yeah. I guess it all boils down to clarity, right? If you're not steering the ship the right way, your clarity's not there. How are you going to build trust? How are you going to build consistency? So I guess a lot of this is boiling back to it. I'm just putting the entrepreneur's hat on, talking about like the operator versus leader gap that there is, right? There are some guys out there that are just killer, really strong operators, but they're crappy leaders, right? Their head is in the sand. They're going, they know what they're doing. And I think this is a fundamental issue in a lot of stuff when guys are starting their own businesses, whether it's marketing, the genesis of deciding who you are, what you do is an operation people don't usually spend a lot of time on. But why do you think, or what you've seen in your experience, why are these strong operators struggling as their companies are growing? And talk about that leadership gap a little bit.
it's a great question, man. And you know what, this type of industry we have is repetitive in many things. And, having a repetitive process is someone who likes follow through. And, if you can learn a process, then you can perform that very well. And then there's very few situations, I would say, in our industry. I mean, they're out there where they force people to think critically, even though we say we do critical thinking and, water mitigation. And we do sometimes in finding out, where you got to backtrack that for. But that's kind of, that is a true system, right? You can track that true system back at that point to see where you're at. And so I think people do really good with hands-on, or they've learned a process over the years and they can replicate that process because that's shown very, to show dividends for them. When we start talking about leading others, that's not a systematic process at times.
Right.
You have a lot of different variables. You gotta know what your culture is. You gotta understand how you, like I said before, how you motivate people. Is it intrinsically? Is it extrinsically? Mm-hmm. How do you show empathy at times, and how do you show let's get the job done, let's get the mission, and then a lot of this goes into even our second track, which are cornerstones of leadership, where we start talking about having that winning mindset and having effective communication, which is some of the two of the most important things you can have as a leader, but also having that humility to realize this, you don't always have to be right. And I think that's another piece that kind of transfers over from being that action guy, and when you're always out there and the customer's looking at you and you're on the site and you're on the scene, and, you are the one that you kind of put yourself there to be right. And they expect you to have the answer. And a lot of times, it's not surface level when we're in leadership, what the answer is, or what the actual problem is. We have to gather information, and that's a whole process. How do we assess? How do we conceptualize? How do we come up with decisions and then put that solution together? And it's hard. It's hard sometimes. And if we just expect people to figure it out, and I can't tell you how many times we've heard that, we'll figure it out. Well, we want to give them that foundational stepping stone to be able to figure it out without
something to fall back on, right? You've got to have a foundation, right? No matter what is the situation is, I mean, everything's going to be different. You got to have something to fall back on. That's a solid ground you'll be able to stand on and then move forward.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
Are you noticing any kind of standard behaviors that you're noticing popping up when someone's stuck in that operator mode?
They have what I call a limited bandwidth.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, they're probably not going to move out of that operator status if that's what they want to do. And not everybody wants to, but how you perform at the operator level, you're still leading people.
Yeah.
Now, some people are very good with customers, but they're horrible with people in their company. I mean, we had a guy we worked with, his boss brought it asked us to help him. Customers loved him, but everybody on his internal customers and his team hated him. and the guy was like, we're going to fire him, and you're going to fire him. I said, okay, have you talked to him and all this? Well, it was kind of hard because he brings in like $6-7 million a year. And I'm like, well, why would you fire him? And he says, because he's pissing everybody else off. And I said, well, let's train him. Let's figure that out. Let's get him some help. Let's figure out what, if he's bringing $6-7 million a year, then we need to probably get him in the right mindset.
Yes.
And we also, so he's got a huge blind side somewhere here, because if he's that good with customers, external customers, but he's not that good with internal customers, he's missing a key piece of information.
Sure.
And, after taking a few of our courses, it worked out really well for him. It changed his mindset, which is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to get a mindset change to where you transition from that operator all the time, where you're 100% on, to sometimes you got to back off and you got to see a little bit more outside, that where you're right in front of you, to be able to truly affect the situation at that point. So,
and if you're building a culture in your company, I'm assuming a guy like that's going to create a lot of burnout, and it's going to create some culture issues, right? Which which impedes the business from growing to where it should be anyways. I've heard a lot of guys, and actually Rocky Hensley from One Tom talks about the rocket booster, right? And sometimes the guys gotta let go, but I'll tell you, $6 to $7 million in one guy in your company, you better figure it out quick. And it sounds like your leadership identity, especially your program and just leadership identity in general, if they did have that established as something to fall back on, that would have been addressed a lot sooner in a lot better way than just getting rid of them, obviously. So shaping your leadership identity program. What is the problem? I know you've talked about this, but why this and why now?
This is really the first step. You have to know who you are first.
Yeah.
And if you don't know who you are and you haven't peeled that back, then it's kind of hard for you to be consistent. We talk about, in our leadership presence course, we talk about having, competence and credibility, which is the credibility, this is the stability in your leadership. And then being able to be able to get trust so that you have the right to lead.
Yes.
Okay.
The buy-in.
Yeah. You have to have the right to influence someone. And so if you're, for me, anybody who worked for me that was going to become a leader and lead a team of mine or some other one, they had to show that they had earned the right to influence others. And if you don't know who you are as an individual, or, it changes this time. And, last week you were nice to talk to, and all of a sudden now you're getting blown up. You're blowing somebody up on it because you're either short or you didn't get the information you needed, or maybe you're communicating the wrong way. That's kind of hard to put yourself and look at others. And the transition from being an operator to a leader, it's not about you. It's about them. It's about the team.
Yes.
And many people, they say it's about the team, but they don't make that transition. It's about the team when it's comfortable for it to be about the team. But when I want my own privilege or I want somebody else, then okay, that doesn't pertain to the situation. Is what that's a big deal.
Yeah,
yeah, and that's how you discredit trust. No matter what you've gotten that equity of trust in there, that's how you discredit trust, and it's also how you don't gain trust when you can't show consistency within your actions, because you may not ever see a word and people are still evaluating you through your leadership presence.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I would probably know the answer to this, but since I wrote this question down, I'm going to ask it anyway. We know this is built for restoration contractors going forward. I'd like to see who should not sign up for your leadership identity training right now. Who's it not built for?
So there's a couple things here. This isn't just for the restoration world. I mean, we've actually give this to healthcare professionals. Healthcare professionals have office staff that people get promoted up through. They've never had any leadership training, and they eat it up like crazy. I would tell you that if you have a fixed mindset, then you shouldn't take any of our courses, because number one, having a fixed mindset is one of the worst things that you can have. You know it all. And I'll tell you what, restoration contractors are very smart. They are. They know everything already. They don't need training a lot of times. They tell you that. They already know it all. Or else they would be taking training and be learning stuff, right? But they're the smartest group in the world. I mean, that's what I've seen. It's funny when you have doctors and people taking the courses here, that tells you something, right? They're pretty educated people, but yet they're still putting a new tool in their toolkit, so they can continue to grow. And that's why we say you need to have a growth mindset.
Sure.
And you gotta want to learn, and you gotta want to be able, because here's the thing. We give you the tools. You can, there's theory, but we give you the application to where you have tools that you walk away with that allow you to lead. Now then, you've got to get the platform. And your platform is your company.
Yeah.
Or the opportunity to take over or get an opportunity for take on a leadership position. And so if you want to, separate yourself from others, these courses, what we do in that allow you to change your mindset, how you speak, how you look at things differently. And so you can get noticed for opportunity for you and your company to take on a leadership position. And and before I would ever hire somebody, we've hired externally, but I always want to look internally first.
Sure.
Before I would promote somebody internally, I needed to understand what their mindset was and how they handled situations where I put them in charge. And it may just be of one other person. It may be a senior tech to a regular technician. It may be a carpenter who's running a team of carpenters, or that you're doing that job. So I need to look and see, but you've got to have a platform. You got to have an opportunity to demonstrate your knowledge. And when you don't have the knowledge to demonstrate, then you're taking that school of hard knocks. And then when it doesn't work out well for you, you hope that somebody will come up and say, hey, Rod, that probably was not the best way to do that. But a lot of times they don't.
Yeah.
They just write you off at that point.
And sorry to cut you off. So if you have a growth mindset, this is for you. Trifecta is for you. And I implore you, listen, I know you're not listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube because you are getting a lot of entertainment from the things that I have to say or the guests that I come on. I know I'm really funny and I know I'm pretty cool and I'm good looking and everything like that. And most of my guests are as well. But I know that if you're listening to this, you have a growth mindset. But if you have guys in your company that have that fixed mindset, I know you do, I do, right? Then this is something that you need to look into right away. Go to the website, Trifecta Growth Institute. February 4th is the launch of the Shaping Your Leadership Identity program that Rod's putting out there. Rod, for guys that are maybe thinking about it on the fence, what is something that you think that they're going to experience first from this type of training?
I'm going to back up just 1 second to one thing. And I'll tell you who's taken this course before. We've had business owners who come in this course with 5 of their subordinate leaders. And that says a lot about an owner to put themselves out there with their other core, but it also shows leadership. They gained so much. The way they learned each other and they got nested and they had one mission, one unit and mindset was huge. The other people who are taking this course are people that are owners by themselves, and they just can't figure out, how do they communicate or how they elevate people on that piece of it. We've had other people that have come out of college and are looking to take this to show that they had some type of leadership training so they could try to get a job. That's the vast variety of people that's taking this course, right? When they come to this course, first of all, you sign up. I think February 3rd is the last day to sign up for it. February 4th is an onboarding. We're going to come in. We're going to make sure everybody's got, there that they're going to be able to check into the system, make sure they can log on, because this is a hybrid program, and then they get their first module. And then that's what the modules that they do on their own takes anywhere from around 60 to 75, 90 minutes, depending on who you are. You do that on your own. And there's deliverables that you have to finish up on there, and you bring that to your cohort. And that cohort, we have a special forces or business owner who's leading that cohort, where you are there with other people in the industry, maybe even outside your industry, and we start to facilitate that sharing of information. So you get to see, how other people are dealing with this. How do they go about it? What are some of the challenges they're facing? And that allows us to get some information sharing amongst each other, and it creates a solid networking aspect of it too. That lasts usually anywhere from 60 to 120 minutes or 1 to 2 hours on that portion. So it's not a ton of time. Yeah. And then from there, you can go back, you can tweak what you've got in your deliverable, because all that's going to be input to where you walk away with your profile and who you are. And you may tweak this a couple of times throughout the course. And then at that point, you move on to the next module. And then you kind of do it's a hybrid module too, So you can do it at night. You can do it over the weekend. And it doesn't take a ton amount of time. And we're not trying to put you through something that is 6 weeks long every day, every hour, because we know you got a day job, right?
Sure. Right.
But we also want to be able to get you to be developed to a point where you are thinking differently, because leaders think differently. Mm-hmm. And so therefore, when you bring that together, when we come together, it's your time to shine. It's your time to ask those questions. It's your time to be a little bit vulnerable and also be like a sponge and not a rock. And the reason I say that is sponges soak up a lot of water and they get growth by that, right? That's a growth mindset. Rocks repel water and they stay the same size all the time. So we're not looking for that like I said, that fixed mindset where you would just want to stay where you're at all the time. We're looking for that growth in some individual. So that's kind of where the course is set up. And then, as we finish up, like I said, you will have leadership tools that you will take to whether you're in charge of somebody right now or you have that opportunity to just, separate yourself and stand out for the opportunity to take that next position and maybe leapfrog someone.
Yeah, I love it. And actually, I'll give you one more for the rock. Rocks actually erode in the water too. So you actually get smaller and erode and eventually die and turn into sand. And
exactly,
somebody will collect you and dump you in a cup or something for their wedding and throw a candle in you or put a cigarette in you one of these days to make it even worse. So Rod, before we wrap up, I want you to give the guys listening to this, ladies listening to this, one bold challenge you'd give every single one of these restoration business owners, or if you're an operator listening to this, or you just accidentally clicked on this because you thought we were something else.
I would tell you to ask 3 questions. Ask yourself 3 questions. Who are you? What do you stand for? And how do you set expectations? That's the challenge.
Yeah.
And then how do you replicate that day in, day out, every hour, every minute, every situation? How do you replicate it? Because if you can't replicate that, then you don't know who you are, you don't know what you stand for, and you don't know how to set expectations. So that's your challenge.
I love it, Rod. Well, we're coming up on the final sign-up date, and I know you mentioned that you're almost full for this first one. How do people get in touch with you, and how do they sign up for this course?
Sure. Yeah, if you go to our website, you'll see on there it's going to be called. We have up in our very top banner. It says, live courses, shaping your leadership identity. That's the easiest way. Otherwise, you can go straight to our training catalog. Go to leadership courses. It's in there. There's some videos in there that tell you a little bit more about the courses. We have a lot of FAQs on those pages that can answer that. And if you want to train your team, and we do private courses too. Reach out to us and just book a consult with me, or pick up the phone and call me. I usually answer the phone. And we can set you up with it without a doubt.
Yeah, that's awesome. Listen, the website is trifectagrowthinstitute.com. He's got a ton of leadership training. The newest one coming up. There's only a few seats remaining right now for this course. You need to sign up by February 3rd. Shaping your leadership identity. Rod, as always, man, I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for shedding some light on what some problems you see in the industry. Thank you for that. The bold challenge you give everybody. It's got my mind thinking a little bit too here, which is good because I definitely have that growth mindset. I've come to terms with not knowing anything very much a long time ago. So I think it's helped me absorb a little bit more and get bigger. So I appreciate your time. Any final thoughts on before we close up today?
Yeah. If anybody's listening out there, make sure you use the discount code Ironclad and you'll get a discount into those courses.
Nice. So I didn't even know that. We'll put that in the show notes. Use discount code Ironclad for 99% off all of Rod's courses from here on out. I'm joking. Rod, anything you do for us, I think that there's a ton of value in these courses that you provide. And as always, it's great chopping it up with you, man. I appreciate you coming on.
Sounds good, buddy. Hey, try to make sure you don't have anything behind the ears there from all that dirt you were in earlier today.
Yeah, I carried some into the office. Actually, my office manager said she smelled me coming up the stairs when I got back today. So I get out of this podcast booth in a minute and be able to get some fresh air. I'll be all right.
All right, guys. You guys have a good one and have a great week.
Thanks, buddy. All right, that was it. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. It was really great to have Rod on. As always, make sure you check out the show notes for your discount code. Make sure you go to trifectagrowthinstitute.com. Sign up for this leadership course. You know you need it. I know you need it. Do not hesitate. The spots are filling up fast. We will see you soon with a bunch of awesome content here coming up in the next few weeks. Hope you guys are kicking off 2026 in a great way, profitable, scaling your business the way you're good. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.